láyé olúgbọ́n mo ké borùn méje ẹ ò máa kọ yí lórin láyé àrẹ̀sà mo ké borùn mẹ́fà ẹ ò máa kọ yí lórin láyé ìsẹ̀yìn èmi ra kókò mo ra rán mo ra sányán bàbá sọ àfọ̀lẹ́ ló lè pélé.
Hello everyone, my name is Adeyemo Adegbemiga Gani and I welcome you to my new Yoruba-Abrahamic YouTube video. And in today's topic, we will be dealing or touching about the actual pre-history, pre-Christianic history, or what actually went down before Christianity came to place. For so many times, people don't often talk about what went down before Christianity was created or was founded. They only limited it to the days of the Egyptian when the Romans came. But I will tell you what actually happened before the Roman invaded and before they took Christianity to Europe and have it to become their own legacy till today. So let's quickly dive into it. First of all, we have to all realize that the indigenous North African people in antiquity, before all invasion started, were typical Africans all over the Africa. So these were random Africans who collectively sees Egypt as a business hub that do visit there for one businesses or the other, mix up with it. This is why Egypt has a random touch of all African traditions or random touch of African tradition within their own legacy till today. So anyone that says Egypt is not part of Africa doesn't know what he's saying. He's just being blind by his own racism. So that is for a fact. So in those times, the Yoruba practically occupied the Nubian region, which is why the Nubian are being dubbed as the Nuabi, Homo Nuabi, Homoti Nuabi, and in Nubian region was divided into two colonies, the Merio region, or the, but me, I don't divide it by that. I divide it by the Napata region of North Sudan and the Dongola region, which are attributed to the Yoruba people, the Ondo people, and the Hijebus of Jebubaka. So that is how our army are divided. So likewise, so the Nubian region, the North Sudan was like an adjacent to the South Egypt. So in those days, there was nothing like country or border. So these people are practically the same thing. They married themselves. You've heard the Torah story of how Moses married an Egyptian, how Abraham married an Egyptian. Is because they can go back and forth. There is no border. It wasn't a country. It was just a free landmass. Well, so the Yorubas of the Jebus and the Ondo were into the Egyptian kingdom. They were practically part of them. This is why the Ondo and Ijebu language today are different from the rest Yorubas of West Africa today. They have a twisted tongue. So they learn more of those things and they have more knowledge of the outside world than the indigenous Yoruba people. If you want any power today, you can go to Ijebu of today. They have knowledge of something beyond West Africa. So that is for that. Therefore, the first people to ever invaded Africa were the Hyksos, and they did so in 1675 BC. The Hyksos are more reference to the Fulbe tribe. I'm not really sure about that because there are debate about it. Some argue that they are the Fulbe tribe. So years later, in 645 BC, the Persians invaded Egypt. So they invaded Egypt and they were more brutal. Their invasion was nothing like something the black Egyptian, the native, had ever seen. They were extremely brutal, wicked, and extremely blunt to an extent that the black Egyptian and the non-Egyptians that dwells in North Africa were actually praying or wishing for another invader to come over their land and overthrow Egypt land from these wicked people that were ruling them. So that was when the likes of the Greek came. The Greek comrade were led by Alexander the Great, the son of Macedonia, and some other warriors. They came into Egypt. They discarded the arrogant and the very, very brutal Arabs or the Persian of the Egyptian land. So they liberated the Egyptians, but one way or the other, they also decided to stay in Egypt. But this time around, the Greeks stayed with the black African Egyptians and other related African people across Nubia as friendly neighbors, not as a but not as a kingdom overriders. So as a result of this, the three parties, the Greeks, the Kemites, the indigenous Egyptians, and the Yorubas who were of Nubian, they thought of creating an institution that will unite them to form an alliance that will unite them as one brotherhood, and that was what led to the creation of the Messianic faith. So the Yorubas that were dwelling in this is why if you actually ask the Egyptian who were the writers of the Torah, they will tell you they are the wise men of the Nile Valley. This is what they said. Who are the wise men at the Nile Valley? Ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n ní ilẹ̀ Nile Valley. The Nile Valley, and the ancient name of the Nile Valley is Ethiopian River. Why the West African Ocean, which is translation, is oftenly dubbed as Ethiopian Ocean in antiquity. So it was dubbed an Ethiopian Ocean, translative water. It was named right after the indigenous Yoruba that occupy West Africa at the Delta region, the Dahomey, the Ondo, the Yoruba, Ondo. Why the Ethiopian Ocean? The Ethiopian River, which is today's Nile Valley, was equally named right after the indigenous Ondo and Ijebu people that are there. So the modern Ethiopia are actually ancient Aksum. They are not Ethiopia. They are Aksum, Abyssinian. I will touch on that later. So if you ask an average Egyptian, a philosopher today, they will tell you the Torah were written by the wise men of the Nile Valley. They're actually saying the Torah was written by the Ijebus and the Ondo, who are the Nubians, Nuabi, that earlier dwelled in North Sudan. And if you must know, everything in Egypt were made possible by the Nubian Sudan. The Nubian Sudan took the concept, the civilization from West Africa, extended it to Nubia, and from Nubia now extended it to Egypt. This is why the Nubian civilization predated the Egyptian civilization. Why the pyramid of the Nubia is much larger and stronger or more ancient than the Egyptian civilization, because and everything that made Egypt today what it is in terms of glories, we are actually not indigenous to Egypt. From the gold, the copper, the dressing, the carving, the intellectual, the reasoning, everything came from West Africa. Like this is why in both Bible and the Quran you will always hear the story of how Joseph was slaved from Africa to Egypt, became a king, gave them wisdom, the likes of Imhotep, Mapreha, and so many forth. Moses became a priest in Egypt, but he was never an Egyptian because Omisheretu was an Ondo man. So I will touch on that too. So as we were saying, when the Greeks and the Nubian, these so-called white men, Ijebus and Ondo people, they collected all the stories of the indigenous Yoruba people from both Central Africa, Ile-Alogo, that is Lihago, which is commonly known today as Congo, Ile-Anogo, and from West Africa, Anogo region. This is why we have Niger Congo, and Niger is Negro land and Negro Congo. They are all Yorubas. The Yorubas from the Congo region came all the way. They are migrants from Oyole, which is why Oyo is still in Niger Congo to today, and they are the grand founder of the Bantu region. They are the grandfather. Their grandfather came from Oyole. So these Yorubas of the Nubian, Omonuabi, they collected all the past history, ancient histories of the Yorubas collectively across Africa, dubbed it into an ancient book which is called Papyrus Scroll, and detailed it. They wrote it in Paleo-Igbo, Akpe, Ile, Ara, Ebi, Ewe, the pronunciation of the Hebrew people. That is what the Paleo-Hebrew means. Say they dubbed it there and submitted it in Egypt. So for proper preservation, the Egyptian, they dubbed it in the Book of the Dead. That was why it became part of the Egyptian kingdom after the Nubian were later driven away into West Africa. So when the Greeks and everything, the Egyptians included their own spirituality, like the Anikwaye, which is commonly known today as Ankh, and some other, the Book of Math, which predated the coming of Moses, but which is now commonly known as the Ten Commandments, and so many things from Egypt. Why the Greeks who came became the administrator, the establisher of that institution. So the first places they chose were the Philae Highland, where they shall all be meet, the three parties, and for spiritualism from practices, why they appointed 27 bishops and 11 volunteers who spread the new gospel message across the West African to Libya and from other places like that. One way or the other, the history or the story got to Rome, and the Rome initially had a long-time relationship or cordial relationship with the Hyksos. The Hyksos people were never fan of the Yorubas in Nubia. They always have a differences between them. So through the Hyksos, the Europeans were able to know everything about the Egyptian, the Nubian, the Nuabi, because they founded that the Nuabi were the grand founder of the pillar of that faith. So after the Greek, the last ruler of Greece was Cleopatra, a female who is commonly seen or historically dubbed as a pure prostitute. The Roman has the name of Colina because the Roman used her to their advantage. So Cleopatra had a secret affair with a Roman emperor, which was Julius Caesar. And from their secret affair, she gave birth to a son known as Caesar. So through her lust, she betrayed the ancient Egyptian. History had it that when she was leaving Egypt to meet her lover in Rome, she took away more than 22,500 papyrus scrolls along with her, which contained all this Torah and all the pre-Egyptian histories to give to her boyfriend, which now empowered the Romans to later reinvade it about a couple of years later after Cleopatra left Egypt. So these are one of the factors of how the Yorubas completely lost and the African completely lost touch or authority over the Torah. And we know not long later, that was when in 325 AD was when the Roman now later sat, because they now had all the papyrus scroll in their Roman vaults. So they decided to summon all the non-African bishops who were initially Messianic religionists. When they sit them down, buy them out, pay some in order for them to utter out the initial Torah that actually belongs to the African people to suit their own agenda, which later came on our slavery. So these have always been a trend of conspiracy for thousands of years. The idea of Christianity was initiated by the African people, and it has been existent long before the Europeans or the Romans came about the newer version or start putting and editing some of the content of it. So it has never been the way of, but it's just that what we have today is just a whitened out version of the stories, even though we can still reference to so many of the truth in it, but it's just a whitened out version. This is why I always advise people, both the Quran and the Bible should always see as a reference to truth, not the actual truth, because those books are now being administered by those who destroy the Africans, who destroy the owners of the books. Like Ben Yusuf will say, a slave master doesn't train his slave on how to be free. They rather encourage you, teaches you on how to be more submissive, how to be more stupid, and how to be more controllable to their gain. So if I destroy you and I'm enjoying all of you, do you actually think I will now be the same person that will reveal to you what will liberate you? Nah. This is why Africans have to take this religion with light, with just a simple mind. It's nothing, because it was given by those who destroyed it. The same Bible which the Roman now took, the Vatican, after they've completely altered it at the Nicaea Council, now became the weapon they use against the Africa. Most of all the altered versions in there are the likes of how they encourages Africans to be more submissive to their slave masters, because they knew that they were the one who were enslaving. And by the way, the Romans were the one who started slavery. So how can a slaver now teach you about God and stole from you? Because they were thieves. They stole everything. The same Arab who started Islam, they were the one who destroyed Muhammad and took over the legacies of Muhammad, whiteified it. So the Pale Arab of Middle Eastern and the Pale Arab and the European, they did the same. They committed the same atrocity over the indigenous Africans. They whiteified both Quran and the Torah for you today, and they made sure that they conditioned the African to submit to them or threaten them with hellfire. These are things African really have to know. In a nutshell, that was how African lost control over the indigenous Torah and became the whiteified history of the white people of today. You really have to know your enemy. I'm not inciting you to hate anybody, but if you don't know your past, you won't know where you are going. In fact, you keep dancing with the devil and you keep falling over and over and over again. This is where Africans really have to wake up and look at their past. A destroyer can't give you what will benefit you, even when it's still benefiting from what it took from you. So that is what I can say about Christianity, the deep origin of Christianity. And if you actually see the Paleo Hebrew too, they are all written in Yoruba letter word, because it was actually from the people we asked that. One of the common questions I receive lately is that people constantly ask me that who are the Nubians, or who was Noah, who was Moses, because we heard that Moses married Moses is an Ondo man. That is for a fact. Noah was an Ondo man. Muhammad was an Ijebu man. Let me give you one of the references from the Bible. Like in Genesis, or I think in Genesis or Exodus, when God told Moses that when God told Noah that Noah should build an ark, that he should put his family in it. Let me first ask you, in Yoruba, what do we call every transporting machine or transporting equipment in Yoruba land? They are called oko. Oko is what they later shortened to ok. Ok. Because we have oko juomi, oko furufu, oko afefe. The oko was what they said Noah, because Baba Oluiwa was Babati Noah bi. This is why we address ourselves as Omoti Noah bi, the sons of the great son of Noah. Our Omoti Nuabi. Nuabi now became Nubia. Noah was an Ondo man who moved back and forth from Ondo to Nubian land. Likewise, Moses too. Moses, God told him to do the traditions of the Ondo, which started from Ondo, which is Ayelala. If Moses is not an Ondo man, how can the Almighty Eledumare be telling Moses to order the people under him, which he guided in Long Egypt, to be practicing an Orisha tradition that actually lived in Ondo? God told Moses, tell your people to engage in the practice of indigenous Ayelala tradition in Ondo town. That tells you that Moses was also an Ondo, and as a matter of fact, he was really a Tikufu Babalawo. His father was a chief priest, Baale, in North Sudan, a chief priest of an area in North Sudan, had 4 children. I will tell you those in another story. I don't want to go beyond that. So in a nutshell, these are where all the Yorubas and all the black indigenous African lost guard or lost hold over the Torah and became whited scripture today. I will try and see you in my next video. Any other question you want me, please just put it below. How we answer it. Help me grow my channel. Please press the likes button. Let me subscribe. Please share my video. I need to grow this channel because this is what keeps me going. It's not even for the money, but at least I have to make sure I'm talking to people, not talking to myself. So I will see you in my next video. Subscribe to my Facebook page too and Facebook channel. Love you everyone. Bye for now.